Okay, we have cumulative revenue percentiles calculated for each of our products. For this given product, for each of the regions and each of the pocket price possibilities. So the first thing we need to do in order to pull out the actual percentiles that we need for our box plot, we need a list of the unique regions that we are going to pull out of the data. So just copy the entire region column, and you can just paste it over here. And then under the data menu, there is a data tool to remove duplicates. So just select that remove duplicates option, make sure that the my data has headers option is selected, and then just hit OK. That will let you know the results. 7 unique values remain. Now in order to match the format that we have here on our box plot sheet, you can see that we need to take these regions that are in a column format and turn them into a row format. Now, instead of doing a bunch of copy and pasting, we're just going to copy the region like such, go over to the cell where you want the row to appear, and under the home menu, there's a special paste option called transpose. Turns your rows into columns, your columns into rows. You can see that it has a little blue arrow at a 90 degree, 2 blue arrows at a 90-degree angle to each other. So just select that to transpose. And just like that, it has everything formatted the way you want. So just add in the percentiles you need for your box plot. Do them from the largest percentile down, 0.95. I'm putting in decimals, but it's the same thing, right? So 0.75, 0.5, 0.25, and 0.05. Okay, and now we are going to use an index match function. It's an index function combined with a match function, and that will essentially allow us to do a lookup, a VLOOKUP on steroids, you could think of it as, because the index match combination allows you to search not only vertically, but horizontally, or a combination of the two. And you can also choose to search for values that are greater than, smaller than, or equal to whatever your lookup value is. That's functionality that the VLOOKUP function does not have. So the way this works is we'll just start here with the custom 95 percentile. Just do an equal index, and the same basic things that you plug into your VLOOKUP, you have to plug into an index match function. You just plug it in a different order, basically. So with the index function, the very first thing you want to do is you want to put in the array, the range where you are pulling in where you're pulling your desired value. So for us, at the end of the day, for this total entire function, we want to pull in the pocket price that matches this percentile and matches these columns that we have, these regions that we have going across this row here. So we're going to be pulling in the pocket price, so just select that entire column, use F4 to make sure that you lock that down, and then put in a comma and begin your match function. With the match function, it's just simply we're going to be pulling in percentiles from this. So this is where we're going to program in the percentiles and see if there's a match with the given percentile we need for our box plot. Now, the way that looks is here, the very first parameter in your match, just choose this 95.95 that you have here, because that's the lookup value that you want to look up for this row. And with this, you want it to always come back here to column K, even if you move over for the remaining regions. So go and use the F4 button and just hit it once, twice, 3 times to get that dollar sign right in front of the K. So that's going to be locked in no matter, how far over you go, no matter how many regions you have. It's always going to come searching back here for that percentile lookup value. So you can just hit comma after that, and then you need to put in where is this function going to look for that 95th percentile. Well, that's coming in here in column E, where we calculated our cumulative percent of revenue, and you can use F4 to lock that down again, absolute values in front of your rows and your columns. And for the match type, you are going to use -1 for this parameter. As you can see here, that is a greater than match. And you can see why that's important here when we go through the example here. Okay, so that's all set right here. We'll just extend that down. Now let's take a little look at exactly what's happening here. Now I'm gonna do sort of an overview of what's happening with your function here, and in the next video I'll dive down into a little closer look at the inner workings of this function. So let's get the function programmed in first, but let's see what's happening here. So one way that you can think about this is all for the custom region. So these are the only rows of data that we're actually interested in here. And one way you can think about this is each of these pocket prices. Imagine that for each of these pocket prices you have a different bucket, and each of these buckets have a different amount of revenue, as shown here in column C. Some of the buckets are much larger than the other buckets. But what you want to do is you're going to dump each of these buckets in one at a time into a larger vat, let's say, and you're going to keep dumping those buckets in until the percentage of revenue in that vat overall, your overall percentage of pocket revenue for that region, until it goes over the value you need for the percentiles in your box plot. So for instance, right here, the very bottom value on your box plot is that 5th percentile. So you want to find out what is the price, the price to where when you add in your buckets in that sequential order from lowest price to highest price, how many buckets do you have to add before you cross over that 5% of pocket revenue? In our case here, the very first bucket that you add, it's the bucket priced at $18.94, and it only amounts to 3.8% of your overall revenue. So that means you have to add in another bucket before you cross that 5%, that 5% of revenue threshold. So when you add in the second bucket, priced at $19.76 right here, you can see that your overall revenue did increase over 5%. So this is actually the value that you want to bring back. And this is where that -1, the greater than parameter, comes in, because you're not actually looking for a match with 5%. You're looking for the first value that is over 5%. And the way the function works is it searches from the top of your data down. So it's going to keep going until it finds the smallest number that is over 5%. And that just so happens to be this 1976, which brings that right in. And then for the remaining percentiles, it works in a very similar fashion. How many of these buckets do you have to add into your overall vat before you cross 25% of pocket revenue? And if you just look here at the cumulative percent of revenue, you can see that right here there's a jump, right? Here the bucket you have that's priced at $21.98 once you have added that bucket, you're only at about 21% of revenue. So you have to add one more bucket, this bucket priced at 22.10, and then in your overall VAT, you do surpass 25% of revenue. But look, it jumps from 21% up to 65%. So when you added that bucket priced at 22.10, that fulfilled both your criteria for matching your 25th percentile and for matching your 50th percentile. So that price, that 22.10, is actually the value you want returning here for both your 25th percentile, which it did, 22.10 is what came back, and your 50th percentile. Same thing, 22.10 comes back. And the 75th, 95th percentile, same thing. You don't actually reach those levels until you add in this those percentile levels until you add in this very final highest priced bucket at 24.84. You jump from about 70% up to 100, so it's only once you add that final bucket that you rise up to 75%, you rise up to 95%. So that's why it's bringing in those values here. So formula is working exactly the way you want it to. So, of course, the next step would be to copy and paste this formula over for the other regions. Now, we're going to have an error, so don't get too upset when you see that all of the values are the exact same. Essentially, what's happening here is that, because remember, it's searching the cumulative revenue from top to bottom, and it's finding the first number that is higher, I guess the last number that is higher than your actual lookup value. So we didn't make any adjustments whatsoever for the region. So basically, for all of these, the percentiles are matched all right here just in the custom region. It doesn't have any reason to go beyond that. So what we have to do is we do have to modify our formula, and that is happening here within the match. The thing is, we actually highlighted here in purple, column E, we only want the function to bring these values into the calculation if the region for that record here in our data set here that we're pulling from, you only want to pull in those values if the region in column A matches the region that's listed here across the top of these prices here in row 14. So the way that you do that is you're just going to modify the second parameter in the match value. Just put in an if, and then select your region column. Make sure to lock that down with F4, and then hit an equal, and then select the region heading right above where you're putting your function in. Okay, and then only if that is true, then I want the values from column E to come in. So you just end the parenthesis right there, and then you still have the rest of the match function, the comma -1. And here on the L14, you want to make sure that that's locked down on your row, that it's always coming up to row 14. So don't forget that $sign in there. And let's hit enter. Hit enter. Copy this down. Okay, and all those values should be the same. But everything for these other regions, if you copy and paste that over, now it changed. Now we're cooking with gas. Let's see. So let's just do a quick sanity check here. Let's take a look at the Midwest. Where is the 5th percentile? Well, okay, the very, looking once again just here at the Midwest region, so just these 4 rows. Well, actually, the 5th percentile, the 25th percentile, and the 50th percentile are all fulfilled when you dump in this very first bucket of revenue, because this bucket of revenue, priced at $18.11, is equal to 61% of the total revenue for this product in that region. So accordingly, you can see that $18.11 was brought in for the 50th, 25th, and 5th percentile, as you would expect. The 75th percentile comes in at $23.89, and then the 95th percentile comes in here at $24.84. Okay, so our formula is working as desired. So this is good, this is functional, you can move forward with this, but just in case the whole concept you're still having trouble wrapping around what's going on, let's dive into the actual function so that you can see what's happening under the hood. It may help you comprehend the overall function and how it works together.